The new design of the Nutrition Facts label is meant to make it easier for consumers to make informed food choices. One of the most noticeable changes is the calories are now in a larger, bolder type. When comparing calories and nutrients in different foods, you should check the serving size. However, since how much people eat and drink has changed over the years, the food serving sizes are getting a reality check on the new labels.
It may not be an example of what one serving is, but it may be more realistic of what someone really is eating, so they can pinpoint exactly how many calories something has.
The new labels are now required to include vitamin D, potassium, and added sugars. When making healthy food choices,
look at the calories. They should look at added sugars. You want to be looking for things that have unsaturated fats and staying away from things that have high saturated fats.
I am Dr. Sal. I'm the medical director for Lifestyle Medicine Institute and the CHIP program, and I want to welcome everyone to the program today. And you know, I have the honor of introducing the coolest people on this show. And if you've tuned into the show in the past, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We have a lady today that's going to talk to us about something very practical. How do you read labels? So we take all of this knowledge that we have from the CHIP program and we put it into action by asking guests to come on that can actually show us how to take the knowledge and put it into action on a daily basis. So a lot of you probably know Jennifer Drost. Jennifer is a graduate of Yale University and is a physician assistant at the Mayo Clinic. She's a physician assistant in internal medicine. She's been at Mayo for 15 years. She was the author of a study that looked specifically at the benefits of whole food plant-based eating on diabetes. And we know, obviously, for those of us that see patients on a regular basis, this is a major disease, a major chronic illness, lifestyle born to a tremendous degree. And I'm sure that Jennifer will get into more of the results of her study and what she found. Besides her medical certification, she is a Mayo certified health coach. In addition, through her company, which is called Evidence Coaching Based Health, she provides customized coaching for individuals, families, and companies to help them achieve their health goals. She also facilitates the CHIP program. Thank you for that. So she's really an expert and can give us more information about her expertise and her evaluation of the program, if you will. She's one of the board of directors on nutritionfacts.org, and I'm sure that for those of you who know Dr. Michael Greger, you know that this is his website, which is always filled with a tremendous amount of useful information. She's sitting for the lifestyle medicine certification this winter. One of her highlights was being a part of Dr. Greger's New York Times best-selling book, How Not to Die. She was part of bringing that to fruition, which is amazing, an amazing accomplishment. And when she's not doing her podcast with her pal Sarah, her other activities include hiking through the beautiful national parks with her family. So I would like to bring Jennifer to the screen, if you would join us. Hello there.
Hello, Dr. Sal.
How are you doing today?
Better now. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to talk to you, and I'm sure that the people on the line are excited to hear what you can tell us today and educate us on, you know, when we go to the grocery store, that's our time to either move in the right direction or the wrong direction. So how do we know when we're shopping for food what actually is healthy for us?
Yes. Well, let's talk about that today. And, you know, before we even get started, I just wanted to say thank you for having me on with you.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
I have been a fan of yours ever since you were working your magic at Lee Memorial. I remember you were using the CHIP program there and getting lots of people healthy. And as you know, I'm a huge fan of CHIP. It is such a rewarding program to be part of. So
yes, we actually did 19 programs before I left, and I just completed one at my new practice. So
wow,
you know, like you, we're intimately involved in understanding the benefits of the program.
Yes, wonderful. All right, well, let's get to it. Let's talk about reading some labels. All right, so first thing I wanted to just go over was what we look for on on a packaged food. So you're in the store and you're going to buy a packaged food. And obviously most of what we eat as chippers is going to be whole food, plant-based, but sometimes we're going to pick up some packaged foods too, maybe like some bread. And it's nice to be able to know what we should be looking for. And Dr. Sal, you and I were talking a little bit before we jumped on this webinar, and you and I both sat through a lot of lectures. Mm-hmm. So I thought one way to make it a little more fun is to have some mnemonics. And so I chose some musical groups to help us to remember all the things we should look for on a package. So I'm going to share that with our viewers today too. So let's go through our 5 easy steps for label reading. So first rule, our viewers may know the Taylor Swift song, "We Are Never, Ever, Ever Getting Back Together." Well, there's a new song. It's called "We Are Never, Ever Going to Believe the Front of a Food Label."
That's great.
So you pick up this box of Fruit Loops, you look at the front, you see things that say, "Good source of fiber." I'm looking at the top of this box, right? "Made with whole grain." Mm-hmm. So we're just not going to believe these things, right? Because these things are just really there to sell us on a food. They're not there to help us find the truth. So first rule is we're not going to believe the front of the package.
Okay.
Okay.
And you know what's interesting about this Fruit Loops box, and I'm sure you know that Dr. Greger has this picture in one of his slide presentations, because this was from the Kellogg's company, which is the individuals that actually started the CHIP program and sanitarium. So it's really funny that you have this up there.
Yes, isn't that wild?
Yeah, this is not what Dr. Kellogg wanted his company to be all about, for sure.
No, you are exactly right.
Right.
I'm sure he'd like to do a recall on the Fruit Loops.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. So, one of the things that I think is so interesting about the food industry is that they have really taken a page from big tobacco, right? And I know we talk about this in CHIP a little bit, but if you look at the similarities, it is a little bit frightening. And so, just like the front of a tobacco, the front of a carton of cigarettes might say, whatever, it's good for calming nerves or whatever it might say, we know to disregard that, just like we disregard the front of the package. And this was just, what were we going to say?
Well, I think you pointing this out is really so important, because we have been inundated for years with these myths about food, that milk does the body good, and you have to have meat protein to be strong. So I think your point is really well taken, that we have to know the science, and we have to be able to weed out the nonsense, which obviously this is.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so our second rule, Dr. Sal, is actually called the rule of 5. And this group, as you very well may know, I don't know how much you're into millennial music. I had to get a little help from my millennial friends. But this one is called 5 Seconds of Summer, this group of guys here.
That's the name of the group, 5 Seconds of Summer?
Yes. So the number 5 is meant to be our mnemonic here.
Okay.
And so for the rule of 5, what we're going to do is now we've gotten rid of the front of the package because we don't believe it. We're going to go to the nutrition facts label, and I've marked here in blue where that 26 is. That's our total carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. And then I marked in green our total fiber. And I did that on purpose because, green comes from, or plants come from things that are green typically. So it's a reminder that fiber comes from things that are green. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide our carbs by our fiber. And that will give us a ratio. And we want that to be less than 5, ideally. And Dr. Sal, one of the things that, I'm sure you hear this a lot too, but one of the things that sort of drives me crazy is when people say, "Oh, I'm trying to eat less carbs," or "I'm, going to go on a low carb diet," which we know is not health promoting and actually decreases lifespan, right?
Right.
But two, carbs get such a bad name because really when you're eating a healthy, whole food, plant-based diet,
Right.
what you're really eating is a lot of,
Carbs.
yes,
Carbs.
complex carbs.
Right.
Right?
Right. Actually,
Yeah.
at one of the ACLM, I think it was at one of the ACLM conferences, I was sitting with one of the authors of Mastering Diabetes.
Oh, yes.
It wasn't Cyrus.
Cyrus or Robbie.
It was Robbie.
Yeah.
I cannot believe how much carbs the guy eats.
I know.
And he had this giant bowl, and he actually filled it up with, vegetables and a couple of mangoes, and getting a ton of carbohydrates. So again, carbs are not the enemy. You just have to eat the right carbs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those guys are so inspiring.
They really are. Yep.
Amazing to see.
Yeah. Shout out to them both.
Yes. Yeah. So this ratio is what helps us to determine whether we're eating complex carbs or simple carbs, right? So as our friend Dr. Katz likes to say, both lentils and lollipops are carbs. And of course, we know lentils are health promoting. And we know lollipops are not.
Right.
And so the complex carbs are all the other plant-based foods. And then the Wonder Bread,
Right.
might be more like candy or lollipop than it is like a
Right.
grain. So this ratio is really important because it helps us sort out, is it simple carbs or complex? So when you have a ratio of 5 or less, then you're going to get to join our gut microbiome. We're gonna put this one back on the shelf. Hard pass on this one. So let's keep going. And we did actually, I was going to get into fiber a little bit. If you're okay with that, just
Please.
why do we care about the fiber? And we talked about carbs, and then the fiber was the other thing that we were looking at on that label. And so I think one of the best things that we could talk about is the gut microbiome, right?
Right.
So really, this slide explains how it really affects everything. So weight, heart health, behavior, including our mood, and of course, blood sugar. So much of that is going on with our healthy, happy bacteria in our gut. And when we feed it the right food, we fuel all those good things. And when we feed it the wrong food, we tend to take away from those things.
And I think the slide really also brings up the thought of another book called The Second Brain.
Yes.
Which really helps us to understand, because a lot of people may look at this slide and say, well, what does my gut have anything to do with behavior or my heart or whatever? It just helps me go to the bathroom a lot, but when you really look at the impact that fiber has on your microbiome and keeping you healthy, it's amazing. It really is.
Yes. Yeah, I love that book too.
Yeah.
Also, the book Fiber Fueled.
Right.
That one too.
Yeah.
I can never say Dr. Will B's last name. I think it's like Olsowitz or something like that. But
yeah, I'm not sure. I mispronounce it like people mispronounce my last name.
I know. We could call him Dr. Will. You've been so gracious to let us say Dr. Sal. It is easier.
Right.
Thank you. I'll move on here. This was something that really shocked me when I started learning more about lifestyle medicine. And I know you know this study, but this was Dr. Ornish's 1990 groundbreaking study where he talked about how a plant-based diet could actually reverse heart disease. So, it's not surprising we could prevent it. Treating it was pretty amazing, but then really shocking was that we could reverse it. And that is all going on partially because of our gut microbiome being healthy too. So again, this fiber is really what fuels the heart health. And so I thought it would be fun just to put up a picture of our friend, Dr. Ornish. There he was on Newsweek back in 1990.
Yes, his work is so amazing. The work that he's done on heart disease and prostate cancer, and yourself as a facilitator of CHIP, and for the other facilitators that are on the line, really being able to give someone that has heart disease hope that it is actually a reversible disease is really such a significant part of the program. So, when we think about what we're delivering as CHIP facilitators and educators, we're not just delivering a program, we're delivering hope to people that they can actually get better. And that's what he's been doing since 1990 and probably before that.
Exactly. Yeah. And then here was one more that I wanted to just share with our viewers, just because this is it's an oldie but a goodie, right?
Right, exactly.
So again, the power of eating the healthier foods that have high fiber. So our friend Dr. Esselstyn on the left here of this, the more purple box, in 1996, we see that artery called the LAD, which, as we know from our anatomy class, is the left anterior descending, otherwise called the widowmaker, because it has such a high fatality rate when it does get clogged up. And then in 1999, 3 years later, the same patient went on a plant-based diet. And as you can tell from our fancy x-ray here, our cardiac catheterization, that artery is open again. So plant foods really are just a roto-rooter for our arteries.
Yeah, we had Dr. Esselstyn on the show a couple weeks ago. And, again, he goes through this. And I actually use this slide in my office. And when I present to patients their disease and what things can look like. And, 3 years is not a long time span to actually notice how open the artery is only 3 years after you started, what seems to be a benign behavior change. Oh, I'll just change what I eat and things will change. This is really dramatic.
It is, especially when you think 3 years in after someone has been eating this way and creating this buildup for decades, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So back to our quick discussion on fiber. So I know you know this, Dr. Sal, but only 5% of Americans get enough fiber.
Incredible.
It's tragic, right? It's just, it is incredible. But here, we can tell that we really need at least 30 grams per day. That's the recommendations from the leading health organizations. But what we chippers know is that if you want to get the gold star microbiome, get the microbiome with the crown, then we really need 40 grams per day.
And, maybe as facilitators, I'm not sure if many of the facilitators do this, but I do this with my patients. I'll ask them, well, how many bowel movements do you have per day? And I am amazed to hear that some patients say, well, I don't even have one a day. I may have a bowel movement every 2 or 3 or 4 days. And I look at them like, oh, my Lord.
Right.
So that obviously tells you that they are getting very little fiber, and the importance of educating, again, similar to the slide that you showed previously, of why it's really important to get the fiber. It's just amazing. This is a great slide. I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, like you said, most Americans get 15. So no wonder they're only going to the bathroom once or twice a week. It's amazing. I'm going to go ahead and move on here to our third rule. So these guys, left corner, the main ingredient. So from the 1970s, a soul group. Everybody probably knows that song, Everybody Plays the Fool, but you might not know who sings it, but it's the main ingredient. So that's how we can remember this. The third rule is that we want to find the whole grains. This can be a little tricky because if you look at some of these examples of labels from left to right here, so if something says, for example, whole grain oats or whole grain wheat or whole grain corn, that's good. We give it the green light. If it says milled corn, then we give it the red light. And it sounds so innocuous, right? Like milled, what could be wrong with milled? But milled is just a fancy way of saying stripped of fiber. So that becomes a simple carb whenever you see the word milled.
And, the question comes up a lot with oats. People will ask me, what type of oats they should eat. Should they eat whole rolled oats or steel cut oats? What's your answer there?
That's a great question. Well, actually, I learned this from the great Brenda Davis.
Ah, yes.
But there is actually a totally a whole oat groat.
Yes.
Yes, that I did not even know existed until Brenda talked about it. So that is truly the best kind of oats you can eat is the whole oat groat. And I have had to order it online because I haven't found it in my local supermarket. But I just order like a big box of it from, Bob's whole mill. What's his?
Is that Bob's Red Mill?
Bob's Red Mill.
Oh, okay, because I was going to ask you that, Bob's Red Mill. Yeah, it's funny because in my last CHIP program, one of the participants brought in his lady friend, and she got up and said, "I'm really upset that you guys don't talk about groats." And I looked at her like, what are groats? She happened to be, I think, from Germany. And she said, we eat these things all the time there, and you don't talk about groats in your program. So I realized that we were missing something.
We were groat deficient.
Right, exactly. So I'm going to go online and order those. That sounds great.
I also think that groats needs a rebrand because groats just does not sound appealing, right?
Yes, exactly. Right.
Yeah, so that would be my take on the whole oats. How about you? What's your favorite?
I've done the overnight oats, and I guess I've always wondered a little bit, and I guess I've been misinformed about the steel cut oats. Which is actually more beneficial. So that's really the reason that I asked the question. But it seems like I guess the groats are number one, right?
I think so.
So would steel cut oats be number two?
I believe so, because I think they're just slightly less processed, right?
Yeah, that's what I understand.
Yeah.
And I guess the important point is whatever oats you decide to buy and eat, it is so easy to make overnight oats in a glass jar and, put some berries and other things in there and just stick it in the refrigerator overnight. And when you have to run out the next morning, this is a great way just to take a quick breakfast, a quick healthy breakfast with you.
Yes. Great practical tip, Dr. Sal. Yeah. I love to do that too. It's so delicious. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Good rule number 3.
Okay. So, and this was my little multigrain versus whole grain. So just a reminder about multigrain too. All it really means is that there's many grains. And that could be from refined and processed flour, or it could be whole grains. So multigrain in itself is not helpful.
I like the little imposter guy there.
Thank you.
That's good. So we could substitute many grain for multigrain, just to remember that when we go
exactly. I like that. Yes. Yeah. When you see that, just think many.
Yeah.
Yes.
And many may not be the right ones that you want.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yes. Okay. So moving on, rule number 4, we have Lizzo here, who is a singer, and one of her songs is called Coconut Oil. So I thought she would be a good one for our saturated fat topic.
That's the name of her song?
Yeah, her song is called Coconut Oil.
Oh,
I had a little help from Dr. Google to find that.
Yeah, look at that.
One of the really cool things about Lizzo is that she recently adopted a whole food plant-based diet.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's how she has that beautiful head of hair, because she's really healthy.
Exactly. I know. I already liked her music, but now I like her even more, knowing that she's on her way to being a chipper.
That's great. That's great.
So as for saturated fat, per the American Heart Association, really we'd like to keep this under 13 grams a day total. That would be the very max. Lower is better. And when we're looking at serving sizes, we should aim for less than 3 grams per serving, but ideally we won't have any. So for example, if you look at this label on our saturated fat column, which is right under the total fat, there's a little red star by it. You can see it says 0. So this is a winner. I believe that this was a lentil package. So lentil or lentil soup. So 0 saturated fat. This gets to join our microbiome. This is a winner.
And your carb ratio here, carb to fiber, is 5.
Yeah, yes.
Not
Good.
bad.
Thanks for tying that in, Dr. Sal.
Yeah,
Yes.
good.
So, yes, this is a good carb, fiber to carb. Sorry, I said it wrong way around. Carb to fiber ratio. So,
great.
yeah. Okay. So,
that's number 4.
oh, yeah. And then just a quick reminder. I know we talk about this in CHIP, but just as a reminder where saturated fat comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously chickens and their eggs on the left, and then cows, if we think of eating beef, and then we see a baby cow nursing here. So we think of milk, milk and cheese. So those are the main sources in the American diet, but also some tropical oils. So if we're buying packaged foods that might have coconut oil, palm oil, those kinds of oils, they can obviously be high in saturated fat as well. Most plant foods do not have saturated fat, but those are the few exceptions. So,
right.
And
I know, some of the transition foods that people are using to go from the standard American diet to more of a plant-based diet, like the burgers and such, are high in coconut oil. And, when you really look at what you're getting there, it's obviously not a healthy food product.
Right. So it might be healthier, right?
Correct. Right. Healthier. Right.
But when you compare it to, say, like a black bean burger that we might make from our CHIP cookbook,
right.
We could definitely do better. So
exactly.
Yeah, I tend to keep those foods. I'd love to hear how you treat them too, but I tend to keep them like as a treat. So like maybe like once or twice a year if I'm going to a cookout or barbecue, and maybe that's not the time I want to show up with my black bean burger. Maybe I'll take some of those burgers that have like the coconut oil. And in the same way that I might, have a treat that wouldn't necessarily be on the CHIP menu a couple times a year if it's like a birthday or something like that. But generally speaking, we want to go for the more whole food plant-based foods. Is that how you do it too?
Yeah, and I like that practical suggestion because a lot of people will say, oh, if I'm going to somebody's house, I don't want to get into talking about what I eat. And I recommend that people don't use the word vegan. When you say I'm vegan, people kind of look at you weird. But that's a really good practical tip. If you know that you're going somewhere and you go into a cookout and there's going to be traditional burgers, you may want to bring your own burgers that you make or you buy. If you're going to buy the ones that are in the store, at least you're getting something healthier. But also, you may want to bring those quinoa burgers or black bean burgers and treat some people there to some healthier food.
Yes, that is a great suggestion too, because there's so many times that I'll take like a beautiful, because plant foods always look so beautiful when we show up with them, right? They've got all the colors of the rainbow in them. And then people start coveting, they've got some brown piece of meat they're eating. And then they start saying, well, are you going to eat all of that? So,
right.
Always good to bring enough to share.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. So I have a funny story when we were talking about treats and things. So for my birthday, my family presented me with a box of dates with a candle in it.
Oh, there you go.
That was my cake.
That's great.
Yes.
That's great. Really.
Very respectful of my wishes.
Absolutely. And for people that really do eat a lot of milk and cheese and eggs, and from the picture here, where they're coming from, ask yourself, am I a cow? Should I be doing what this little baby cow is doing? Right,
totally. I know. When I really stopped to think about it, being like the only mammal that drinks the milk of another mammal,
right,
really doesn't make sense, right?
No. I asked my mom that the other day, and she looked at me and she just gave me this funny look. I said, well, what's your answer? And there is no answer. There's no other species aside from humans that do that.
That's so true. Yeah. All right, so I will move on. So our last rule, so the last person here is Ava Max, and she sings a song called Salt. So this is how we can remember our sodium content.
Okay.
So if you look at this nutrition label, I marked the calories in blue and the sodium in red. And ideally, our sodium should be less than our total calories. So on this one, you can see our calories are 110, and our sodium, there with the red star, is 135 milligrams. So unfortunately, we have to throw this one back on the shelf because it's just a little high.
Right. And do you actually see, because I'm sure that you do supermarket tours with people, when individuals look at these labels, do they actually use this information to put that so-called food product back on the shelf?
Well, that's a great question. So I think it depends. Like, say you were going to use this as like a garnish, right? Then it's probably less important that the sodium is so low, because if you're only going to eat 2 tablespoons of it anyways, and then maybe you just don't put sodium in the other thing that you made, right? Then you can kind of even out how much sodium you get in a day. But if this was going to be the main thing that you were going to eat, say this was going to be, your main lunch, then you might think about putting it back.
Right. And as we really get more involved, and I've been talking to the folks at LMI about really getting more of the facilitators involved with the individual's primary care physician, we can really start to query the people that are in the audience to say, if you do have a history of congestive heart failure, the amount of salt that you can have in your diet is even lower than everyone else. So we can really create some very significant action plans for people just simply by helping them read labels. This is a phenomenal thing to do.
Yeah, I love that. Making more individualized plans for people based on, if they have congestive heart failure. Yep, that's really smart. It's a good way to use this information. All right. So how about if we go through a label together and we put everything we learned together?
Well, yeah, and then after this webinar, I definitely have to bone up on the artists of the day, because I only knew 2 of the 5.
No, you and me both. So I had some help from our medical students.
There you go.
So,
all right, so we have a new label to go through.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So, and before we get started too, I should really say, if you're in a hurry, if you were to use rules 1 and 2, I tried to put these in order of importance. If you were to just use those first 2 rules, you would be good 90% of the time. So the other ones get to be a little redundant, but there are other ways. There are good ways just to cross-check a product. So, all right, Dr. Sal, are we ready?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So our first rule, we are never going to believe in front of the food label. So I didn't even show it because we already flipped this over. We're not believing it. So rule number 2 is our rule of 5. So if we look at this nutrition facts label up in the right upper corner, we can see that our total carbs are 15.
Right.
And our dietary fiber is 3. So we got a
good one.
We got a good one.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
So this is a 5, so that's great. And that tells us again that we've got a lot of complex carbs in here. Those are the health promoting kind. So we're not looking at some candy. We are looking at something that's got some significant whole grains. So that's good. All right, so now we're going to move on to number 3. We're going to check our main ingredient. And if we go down to that ingredients panel, we see the whole wheat flour. Woohoo! That's our first ingredient. So that's all we need to do.
Right.
So, and we can go further if we want, but you really don't need to. As long as you see that first ingredient is a whole grain, we're good.
Okay.
Next, we're going to check the saturated fat. Lizzo reminds us of that. So we'll go back up to that label up there. And as you can tell, if you go down under total fat, saturated fat is the first indented fat there. And we are good. We're at 0. So that's a keeper. And then last, we're going to check the sodium. And And so if you go down again on the nutrition facts label, if you go, you see in bolded the total fat, the cholesterol, sodium. Sodium is 75.
Mm-hmm.
And then our calories they're over on the left there.
Mm-hmm.
They're 80.
Right.
So again, our sodium is less than our calories. So
that's a good one.
It's a winner.
Great. That's great.
Yes. So, and I believe this was maybe Dave's Killer Bread, I think.
Ah, nice.
Are those?
So
Yeah.
somebody put a question in the chat specifically about sugar. So
Good.
If sugar is equal to 10 grams and added sugar is equal to 5 grams, is the total sugar equal to 15 or 10?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Right.
I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I would usually go by the carbs.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I always struggle with that one too, because it really is confusing. Are they adding 5 more on top of the 10, or is 5 included as part of the 10?
Yeah, that's a great question. Intuitively, it seems to me that it's 5, but but I truly don't know. This would be great to get maybe like a Brenda Davis or someone like that to weigh in on, because I am.
Or that other unknown guy, Michael Greger.
Yeah, you could ask him too.
He's always got the answers.
He's always got it.
Yeah, actually, I'll send them both a query on that one. So it's total sugar. Yeah, I'm sure one of them can help us for sure. And then somebody put in Sid Notter. Hi, Sid. She put in a tip about sugar, which is really interesting. So when you look at the grams of sugar, so if it said, there was 20 grams of sugar in this particular food product, it doesn't give you a visual on what that actually is. So knowing the numbers and the conversions, and I'll usually tell people, if you don't remember any other conversion, because everybody hates math, right? One teaspoon is 4 grams, and 1 teaspoon is actually 16 calories. So you can actually figure out how many grams. So if this one was 20, you can figure out how many teaspoons of sugar is in something. And when you have that visual in your head, then you can see, oh, this is really a bad food item.
Yes, that is a great tip.
Do you want to go to some questions?
Yeah, I'd love that.
So there's another question. Interesting fact. This was actually 1 tablespoon of coconut oil has 12 grams of saturated fat compared to lard, which has 5 grams. So Sid is just putting that up as an interesting fact, which is great. Colette says, so coconut oil and avocado oil are bad? And she's got a question mark.
Coconut oil does have significant amount of saturated fat. Avocado oil has less.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we would prefer, or we would recommend that
eat the avocado.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So you could just eat the avocado rather than the oil. That would be the optimal.
And as far as the number of calories, though, aren't the calories the same? Whether it's coconut oil, avocado oil, or whatever, it's still 120 calories per tablespoon.
Exactly.
So you're not getting away with anything. Sherry says, I have also seen whole unprocessed rye and barley grains referred to as groats, rye groats and barley groats. Dr. Greger's brole? What does that mean? Brole is barley, rye, oats. Oh, okay. Just an acronym.
Oh, right. That's one of his recipes is the
barley, rye, oats, and with lentils. Okay, that's very cool. That's I like that.
Yeah, so you can get groats for just about all of our grains. Yeah, that's a good tip. It's not just the oats. Yeah, you can also get barley that way too, and rye. Yeah. Oh,
and Kathy Reinhardt. Kathy is Kathy, right?
Yes.
Kathy is our chip guru here. Kathy's actually the lady that got me involved and Lee Health involved with chip years and years back. So she says most people think they have to use rolled oats for overnight oats, but steel cut oats work just as well.
Oh, awesome pro tip, Kathy. Thank you.
Great. Nancy asks, what type of barley is best?
Oh, barley groats.
Barley groats. That's got to be the deferred answer. The default answer now.
Right. Is always the answer, no matter what the question is. It's
right. Groats. It's groats. Whatever. I'll have to look that up. I don't know if there's any particular barley that's better than others.
Oh, well, we do know that typically the darker colors are associated with more antioxidants. I know,
Right.
like, for example, black beans have a magnitude of something like 100 times more antioxidants than
Right.
like the
Right.
light colored beans. So my guess is if you could get a darker barley groat versus a lighter barley groat, my intuition would be that it's probably better to go darker.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons if I can find the purple carrots in the food store,
Ah,
rather than the white ones or the yellow ones or the orange ones, the purple carrots, because of the darker color, have more antioxidants in them. I did general internal medicine for 26 years, and now really since April, transitioning to this concierge lifestyle medicine program, it's really been so beneficial to be able to sit with people and give them, what I call the pillars of lifestyle medicine, the simple things that you can do to stay healthy. Just eat more, move more, lessen your stress, sleep more. What Dr. Ornish says, love more and really have a purpose in life and such. Those simple things, although they may not be as easy and quick as writing a prescription for a medication, go so much further in helping people improve their lives. So, yeah, rock on to all this stuff that we're doing, because it really makes a difference.
yes.
Yeah. What summary can you give to the audience and an action item that they can use right now to improve either their lives or the lives of the people that they work with?
Awesome. I love that. So I think the best summary is just remember the rule of 5. Like if you're obviously you're not going to forget Taylor's advice to us to never believe
Ever.
ever. But also just to look at the rule of 5, and that's a great guide.
I like the practical approach that you give us towards using labels in a way that really makes a difference, so that when you walk out of the grocery store, you really have chosen some very healthy foods. And, I had 2 patients yesterday that came in and unfortunately have very bad purchasing habits, if you will. So they bring a lot of junk into the house and, say, well, you got to have snacks in the house for the kids. And, if they're there, I eat them. I think making the decision when you're in the grocery store to really be healthier and using those choices to really make a difference in your life or the life of your family or whoever it is that you're feeding, if you will, goes such a long way that, I'm sure that everybody on the line is going to take all of these 5 tips and really use them on a regular basis. So
Good. I hope so.
yeah, I'll leave you with the last word.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for everything you're doing, Dr. Sal, and thanks to all of our chippers too. We are spreading the light, as I like to say.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure and an honor to have you. Stay well, have a blessed holiday, and we will see everyone next week. Oh, don't forget, for next week, we have Dr. Scott Stoll. I'm sure everybody knows Scott, Dr. Stoll from the Plantrition Project, and he's going to talk about, what did we say, organic food. What is the deal? So tune in next week, and God bless everyone. See you next week. Thank you again.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.